You know what is interesting, David?
Okay.
I think people are more likely to leave a church because they don't like the music than they are to leave a church where the truth is not being preached. There are some
yeah, I'm
like
with you now, Doc.
there's some areas here where I'm kind of like, what they're saying there, that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not biblical. But because it aligns with somebody's liturgical or musical values a little bit more, they're more likely to sit where the teaching may be a little bit more errant, but musically it fits my preference better. And so I just think, the truth of the scriptures has to be preeminent in kind of deciding if I'm going to, kind of settle here and align my values with what is being taught. Like, it's got to be from the word.
Life can be fast-paced, strenuous, and flat-out overwhelming. Life transitions and taboo topics can make it hard to catch your breath. Welcome to Breathe, a podcast that enables you to slow down, get your bearings, and engage in real conversations where no topic is off limits. Breathe is presented by Breath of Life, hosted by David Person and speaker-director Pastor Debleaire Snell.
Welcome to Breathe.
Welcome to Breathe.
David Person here with the pastors. Snell, Nugent.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, we're here. That almost sounds like a law firm.
Snell Nugent. Yeah.
Or an accounting firm. Snell Nugent.
Snell Nugent Person.
Snell Nugent. Right, I was saying, Snell Nugent Person. Snell Nugent. You got to put the whole thing in there.
Put it all in there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're not your legal counsel.
No.
But we are.
But you can't call us. Call me. I'm going to leave it. We're going down.
That's funny. I didn't see that coming. We are here, though, we chop it up.
Yeah,
we are really serious.
Really, we do.
And we approach this with as a ministry, because that's what we believe it is.
Absolutely.
Pastor Snell, I think, has crafted something here that is accessible, and many of you respond, and we're glad for that.
Absolutely.
Happy for that. We have been talking about this month, should I stay or should I go? We're applying it to various scenarios. One scenario we started off the month with was friendships. Friendships.
That was
platonic
big.
friendships.
Yeah.
Today, should I stay or should I go when it comes to my church?
It's
we are going there. We're going there.
Yeah.
To my church.
To my church.
And I think it's really going to be interesting to hear this, from the pastoral perspective. Should they go? Should they stay?
Yeah.
And what's the impact of that on the church? Well, let's start with something that's, I think, fairly common. I remember being called this a few years ago. I don't know if people still use this term or not. Church hopping.
Church hopping. Yeah.
Do they still use that term?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
very much a thing.
You got folks who they are sort of addressing this should I stay or should I go question by kind of moving around, kind of almost like doing a taste test.
Yeah.
Let me see what this worship service is like, or let me see what this one is like. As pastors, how do you feel about that?
So I think by and large, this conversation won't really. So a church hopper is probably going to be a little bit different from the person that I think we're speaking to.
I see your
that's
point. Yeah.
Really conflicted.
I see.
Dealing with some real stuff and trying to manage, is this the fellowship for me?
Okay.
So like a church, and so even a taste tester.
Okay.
Because maybe, you're in the food court in the mall, and you may try some samples so that I ultimately decide where I want to commit and eat.
Got it.
See, a church hopper is essentially, they're not taste testing. That's the person that I'm going to decide here until it's convenient. Then I'm going to hop to the next thing.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to hop to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hop to the next thing. And so I think the challenge with a church hopper, and I'm here in Huntsville, right? And, we have, probably 10 to 15 churches in the area. And I think that the challenge with someone that is a church hopper is they like in our city, I call them the floating 200.
That's it.
And
I've heard you say this before.
The
yes.
floating
Floating
200
okay.
is whenever there is a new pastor or a new church or a new something that pops up,
Yeah.
they're going to drift toward that until it loses its novelty
It's no longer
or
new.
newness.
Yeah.
Okay.
They will infect it to a certain extent. And then they're just going to move on to the
something
next
else.
new thing.
When you say they're going to infect it, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that, they carry a discontent.
They do.
Okay.
They carry
They do.
kind of a complaining, frustrated spirit that they kind of leave in the fellowship.
Yeah.
Only to know they're gonna move in a certain amount of time. And it's funny because having been here since 2010 now, you kind of know who they are.
You see
and the
it.
shifts are actually somewhat predictable.
Okay.
And so I just think that group, they're looking for spiritual nirvana. They are looking for heaven on earth, not realizing that in every pastor there is imperfection, and in every fellowship there are going to be
Absolutely.
imperfect people. There's going to be
Mercy.
somebody that
Yeah.
you disagree with,
Yeah.
somebody that you just would not vibe with, somebody that maybe brings some offense. And I just think that they never develop enough root to experience meaningful fellowship in any body of Christ, because again they have an expectation that is unrealistic, and what happens is they become drifters that never really settle anywhere. And I think that's the challenge. So they're not even responding to something that's toxic. It's just whenever it doesn't fit every peculiar convenience that I've crafted,
Okay.
I'm out.
Okay.
And I just think that's the challenge. They never develop any root. They never develop a service acumen.
That's the part for me.
Okay.
Because
That's the part for me, yeah.
I'm coming to just draw from it.
Yeah.
I
I'm not
never,
coming to serve. No.
serve or commit anything to it.
Right.
And honestly, that's actually how you develop roots in a church.
You gotta serve.
Because at the end of the day, I don't want to say this. Like, I do enjoy the weekends that maybe I get a week to sit down. But it's funny. I don't really find rest in sitting down to a certain extent, because like when you develop the rhythm of serving, it's just kind of hard to sit and observe.
Really is. It is.
And I do think that there is a part of spiritual growth. I think this is my larger point. I just think you're going to be church discontented if all you do is come and sit and watch. I just don't think that there's anybody that can put on the show well enough, long enough to satisfy a longing in your soul that can only be filled through sowing and making a contribution.
Totally agree.
And learning how to be a blessing to somebody
That's the cheat.
outside of my personal
This
ecosystem.
is the cheat code right here.
Yeah.
This is
Okay.
it. This is it. Service is a huge component. But I would also say for the church hoppers, there's they always have a reason why they left the last church.
Yeah.
And they're very much willing to tell you.
Yeah. That's true.
They're very
Yeah.
willing to tell you. And there's a rubric that they've created. But I think when a person is struggling with should I stay or should I go?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're moving to another city, it's already a
Right.
foregone conclusion.
Sure.
But if you're dealing with something that is serious and significant,
Correct.
man, unfortunately, at church, we like to think that church is a safe haven, but unfortunately, people have experienced deep hurt at church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to negate a person who is navigating that. Like, I don't really know if I want to see that person.
Yeah.
Even though I've given it to God and I've released them in terms of forgiveness because I want to release myself, but I just don't know if I want to see that person on a day-to-day or week in, week out. So it's not even from a service component. It's I've just experienced this hurt and I'm in a healing place. You've got a valid should I stay or should I go question.
Yeah, it sounds like to me you're talking about perhaps divorce.
Could be that
Perhaps
too.
I know of a situation where
You're so correct.
A person was confronted by, confront may be the wrong word, but certainly was forced into a situation where she had to interact with her abuser, her childhood abuser,
Not good.
and that was uncomfortable for
that's
her,
not good.
and that had to be addressed.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
a
got some
that's
of
a
those
triggering scenario.
Yeah. Those
So
are
you got
very
those,
valid. I mean, and I would lean heavily on go for those types of scenarios.
Yeah, if it can't be resolved,
you're a church, and I think it kind of lends itself. This part of the conversation lends itself to what should a church fulfill for you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a place where you can serve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A place where you can serve. Yes, you want to be fed. Yes, you want to be a part of a community of believers. You want to have some people that you're developing relationship with, that you're doing life with, people that you can serve with, but also people who are going to hold you accountable. Some of the stuff that we talked about in the last episode in terms of friendships. You want friendships at the place where you are worshiping in your community of faith. But it is ultimately it's a launch pad for you to be able to use what God has put in you to bless someone else.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say to the person who, and I'm thinking now about a scenario like this. What do you say to the person who loves to sing, is probably not the greatest singer, but they can carry a tune. Mm-hmm. They step into a church like our church, the Oakwood Church.
Yeah.
And we've got amazingly talented people.
It's phenomenal.
I mean, just and lots of them, not just. So that person that loves to sing and serve that way, they look around and they're just like, I don't think I can fit in here.
Yeah.
There's not room for my little gift versus this person's gift that's much more substantial.
Yeah.
What do you say to that person in terms of staying or
interesting.
going?
That's an interesting scenario. Yeah.
I do think, but that's where I do think you have to cast down imaginations. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't want to say this. Like, so I'm the pastor of the Oakwood Church, right? And I can say this in truth. Like, I don't think that there is any ministry
not one
that we can say,
I know where you're going.
We just got too much help for this. We don't have no more room for people to serve.
Not one.
Like that's not even a real thing. So I just think that may be kind of more of a perception thing that they're they look at the Stephen Menders and decree and think like, man, I could not. No, that's actually not true. I just think that there are times where you need you to kind of make yourself known, take some initiative. And it is our job to find a place for you to serve. Now what I've seen is kind of somewhat the I know that's a real thing, but you know what the other thing is?
What's that?
Like there's some people that are only willing to sing if it's 11 o'clock, divine worship. So if we ask you to do on Wednesday night or maybe a revival night or a funeral, I can't really be bothered with that. I want prime time, and if it's not prime time, don't bother me at all. But I just think that I just think at the end of the day, you have to go in with a servant's mindset and not a performance mindset.
I totally agree.
It's not about how the audience is going to react to me or my gift. It's about me bringing an offering before God, and so whether that offering is me ushering or me greeting or me securing the parking lot or me singing, I just think that if we bring that offering to God, and knowing that this helps build His work, then we'll be good, and that God will create room for our gifts.
But I also think there's because all of these are super valid. But I do think that. Listen, if you have the gift, when I lived in South Africa, I almost sang almost every week. Oh wow! Back here in the States, it's just not as much of a need. And it's not so much that I would like to, but I am actually needed in a different area. Does that make sense?
Sure.
I met up with a guy who used to attend the Bridge, and he was like, "You're the prayer guy." Why does he say that? Because every week at the Bridge, I was the guy that did prayer.
Yeah,
but at Oakwood, I'm known as the media guy. You see what I'm saying? So just different seasons for different places. I do think that if you are a singer, there are some churches that really need somebody to help them lead in music. And I don't think it's a bad thing. If you feel God has called you, this is the way I am been called to serve.
Where am I a solution?
Where am I a solution?
Yeah.
That's the piece. I love the way you framed it, because I was kind of going around it. But where am I a solution? And because what I have to offer may in this larger context or in this particular church could be smaller or larger. Maybe they don't need it. And then you begin to start looking around, okay, where could my gifts be best used? And that to me, I don't think is a bad thing. I think if you're looking at it from
but
that
I think that's when you're in the evaluation process.
Absolutely.
It's not like, okay, man, they didn't let me sing when I wanted to sing. So now I'm out. You know what I'm saying? That's a little bit more of a pouting.
That's more pouting.
Kind of reaction or response. And I don't know that that's kind of what God blesses.
No.
You know?
I'm with you on that.
Because ministry, somebody put this on Facebook. They were like, ministry is about finding a place to serve, not a place to shine.
Ooh.
And I just think that's a cultural dynamic that perhaps maybe in some large churches, especially a college church, young people, that's a principle I'm hoping more people are embracing. And
but I also think that there's this perception that we must throw down, that especially at a church like Oakwood, and I'm certain that others are experiencing this as well, that every position is filled, that they don't need any help.
It's not true.
It's just not true. Even from a media perspective, I can tell you right now, you go to Cheddar tomorrow, he's going to put you on the camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we need more.
But there is no church that is like that.
And
it's just not a real thing.
It's not a real thing.
Anywhere.
Where they're going to turn away people saying, no, we don't actually need you.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Or you want to come and serve, we'll figure it out.
There is no healthy missional church that is like that. Maybe
Gotcha.
that's a better way to say
Okay.
that.
I like that.
I like that reframing. Yeah.
So do you think there's a time when a person should actually say, you know what, I probably need to go to a different fellowship?
I think there is a narrow set of circumstances.
Okay.
What is interesting, David?
Okay.
I think people are more likely to leave a church because they don't like the music than they are to leave a church where the truth is not being preached. There are some.
I'm with you now, Doc.
There's some areas here where I'm kind of like, what they're saying there, that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not biblical. But because it aligns with somebody's liturgical or musical values a little bit more, they're more likely to sit where the teaching may be a little bit more errant, but musically it fits my preference better. And so I just think, the truth of the scriptures has to be preeminent in kind of deciding if I'm going to, kind of settle here and align my values with what is being taught. Like, it's got to be from the word.
It's got to be.
But do you think they're aware of that? Do you think they're aware of the errant nature of what is being preached or taught?
I think some are. So, like, for instance, but I think because they're still Adventists in our context, they'll still roll with it because they're still under the conference and under the umbrella.
Right.
But everything that they teach may be
a little different,
a little extreme one way or the other. And I'm just kind of like, I am personally bothered by that. I just don't know how we come to that conclusion. And then there are some who, again, they may be under some deception or they may just not know. But at the end of the day, I just do think, man, I like their music the best. No matter what the music is. I just don't think that should be the driving decision.
Not at all.
I don't think that should be prioritized above whether or not the truth of the scriptures is being proclaimed or taught, whether it is ultra conservative or ultra liberal. But if the word is not central, I just don't think that can be the place where you settle or abide.
Along with worship, I was just going to ask you, I'm sorry, along with music, isn't worship style also generally a part of that whole dynamic?
Oh, yeah. And that's, I'm putting it all together, music and worship style and liturgy.
Okay.
And again, I think that there should be some, I guess, aligning values, but it should not, in my opinion, be the deciding factor, especially if I think truth has to break the tie.
Truth has to break the tie.
So, for instance, I'm probably a little bit more expressive in terms of liturgy and worship, so on and so forth. However, I would rather be in a church that is more liturgically conservative if I believe the truth of the scriptures is being taught by whoever is leading in our small group Bible study dynamics, so on and so forth, than to be in a church where, okay, man, they're high energy and praise and worship like I am, but like when I listen to what's being said, I'm like, no, that's just not true. I can't. I'm going to kind of let truth be the tiebreaker in that regard. I guess if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think number two is just, and you all touched on it, if there are fellowship dynamics that are relationally unhealthy, not relationally inconvenient, just unhealthy. So you talk about there is an abuser, and now I am forced to be in close proximity with this person that has brought emotional violation or harm, to me emotionally or physically. Now again, violation again, it's just different than just the
Yeah.
relational dynamics that happen when you have people that disagree,
Right.
or somebody that just gets on your nerves,
Right.
or this is not my type of people. Because what happens is you'll be running from those kind of people all of your life.
Yeah.
They are in every church. Like, I mean, that's the thing. That's why, a part of the church hoppers dynamic is because the personality type I was trying to get away from in that church,
They're there.
they're already waiting for you at that next church. And
Right.
they are going to find you in some way. It may take a few months, it may take a year, but they're going to find you. And you'll be right back on the circuit all over again. Because you're not trying to get away from a violation. You're trying to get away from a personality type. Or two that you don't like. Or you're trying to escape moral accountability. And that's a part of church hopping too, as well.
That's really
That's
a big component.
That's a big component.
That's a huge
You can't
component.
say it,
No.
but that's kind of really
No, that's not the reason.
at the core what it is.
Oh man.
So I think where the truth is not being taught, where there is relational harm that is at play.
Yeah.
And then honestly, I just think that for me, when a church is just so insulated, like where I pastor churches where there was no desire to grow because like that group of families were able to maintain power by keeping it like it is. And I just think that where the environment is so missionally, hear me when I say this, not worship, not sermons, missionally stale and stagnant. There is no outreach. There is no concern for community. There is no care for the lost. Like I would not be able to survive or thrive.
Not at all.
And I want to be clear, I'm not saying stop going to church. I'm saying that just may be some of the cues where it may be time for me to kind of look at joining another Bible-based or in our context, Advent church, where man, emotionally I'm going to wilt here. Spiritually, I'm going to die because the truth is not taught here. Or just missionally, man, I'm going to miss out on like the calling that God has placed upon all disciples because I have nobody to partner with in real mission. Yeah, so those are three of the things that I would kind of lay out.
No, that's gold. And I don't think you're right. There's very few categories, few reasons for a person to go. And I think you've laid them out very clearly. But I also just, the heart is deceitfully wicked. Who can know it?
Who can know it? Yeah.
You really do have to check yourself. Because we can talk ourselves into some of those reasons.
Yep.
If we will let ourselves.
That is true. Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, really check in to see, why do I really not like being here?
Yeah.
Why do I feel like I need to be moving on to another church?
Right.
I think really check in.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want to happen is where you're in that group that's just bouncing.
Floating. Yeah.
And that's not a great space to be.
Yeah. And one of the things I do want to issue this challenge, and I was actually I was in a leadership conference earlier this week. And one of the things that the presenter was talking about was relational health. And one of her charges, and it was kind of a different dynamic, but it applies to church, is like, man, we are community consumers as opposed to community builders.
Yeah.
So like basically every community that you would like to inhabit, you'll never inherit it.
Right.
You're gonna have to build it. Like, so like at work, man, like if you really have a desire, you're gonna have to build that community.
Yeah.
There's no work culture that's just like thriving and it's perfect and waiting for you to get there.
No. Right.
There is no family. Like, whatever family dynamic you want,
you build it.
You've got to build it.
That's it.
And it's the same thing in church.
It's the same thing.
So like you'll always be drifting if you're just kind of sitting back in the cut, watching online, waiting to kind of find that perfect fellowship. And when it comes, I'll just come in and consume it. No, you've actually got to be a part of the process of building it. So like, man, if you're saying, man, the ladies in our church, they just don't get together. It's just fake. We're separated. No, you got to be the builder of that. If you're a man and you're just like, man, I need fellowship. I want to connect with other brothers who are sharp and trying to be about the Lord's business. You got to help build that community. If you're worried, like we don't have nothing for our kids, you know what that is a call to? It's a call to help build something for children.
So good.
And so I just think that like, as opposed to being community chasers and consumers, like, man, we got to all be willing to kind of roll up our sleeves
and be
builders. And even if you're doing the online church thing, which is what I love about, what Pastor Nugent has done, is like, it's not, all right, y'all just come and watch. There are opportunities for you to connect in the community, opportunities for you to serve, so on and so forth, so that you're still a part of a missional enterprise and not just, I just come and consume. And be a voyeur of a service. I'm a part of a living missionary community.
I love that.
Yeah, there's a saying that I used to hear, be the change you want to see.
Be the change you want to see.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you'll take that to heart. Be the change you want to see when it comes to church.
Yes,
if it's not to your liking, something is not to your liking, then, prayerfully, judiciously, try to find out how you can make a positive change or move things forward in a positive way.
Mercy.
And the answer isn't always, going to another church, but we also say sometimes that's necessary.
Sometimes it is.
And we understand that and embrace that. Well, I hope that you will be blessed, continue to be blessed by this podcast.
Yeah.
One way that you can be part of the change you want to see is to suggest some topics.
Sir.
Yeah, feed us. Feed
us the information.
Yeah.
Feed us the context, the issues. Drop them in the comments. We look at those. And,
we do.
And we'll glean some ideas from what you're sharing, and it will influence Pastor Snell as he lays out our monthly schedules. So do that. We will definitely be watching for that.
Absolutely.
And also, I hope that you will join us next week when we shift this conversation about staying or going to our professional lives.
Okay. Work life.
Career. Work. Job.
Yeah.
Should you stay
Or should you go?
We'll hit that next week.
All right.
And in the meantime, remember, stop, pray, and breathe.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Executive producer is Debleaire Snell, and sound engineer is Kirk Nugent. Audio episodes of Breathe can be found on Apple, Spotify, or Google podcast platforms. For video episodes and extra content, check out the Breath of Life YouTube channel. Breath of Life is faith-based content, resources, and programs from a contemporary urban perspective for those looking for hope and guidance. We believe that every breath we take is a testimony that God is consistent, that He loves us, and has a plan for our lives.